The morning had started out quietly. Daniel sat on his porch, sipping a hot cup of coffee as the sunlight filtered through the tall oaks on his 10-acre property. It was his sanctuary, land his grandfather had purchased decades ago, free and untouched. Daniel loved that it sat just outside the sprawl of the town. No noise, no close neighbors, no rules. At least, that's what he thought. When the mail truck rattled up his gravel driveway, Daniel lazily made his way down to fetch the day's delivery. Most of it was junk, but one thick envelope caught his eye, certified mail stamped in red across the top. Curious, he tore it open right by the mailbox. His eyes widened. Notice of violation. Total fines due, $150,000. The letter listed absurd accusations, unauthorized structures, unapproved landscaping, and even excessive noise complaints. Daniel laughed bitterly. He rarely visited the property more than a few weekends a year. The unauthorized structure was an old shed built by his grandfather. The landscaping was nothing more than pasture and oak trees. As for noise, the only thing loud here were the crickets at night. The final page threatened foreclosure if he didn't pay within 30 days. Daniel walked back to the house, shaking his head in disbelief. His grandfather had always said this land stood independent, untouched by the surrounding developments. Yet here was an HOA trying to strong-arm him. Instead of anger, a smile spread across Daniel's face. He decided he'd pay the board a visit. 2 weeks later, Daniel entered the subdivision's clubhouse. The board sat lined up at a long table, smug and self-important. At the center was Marjorie, the HOA president, with sharp glasses and an even sharper tongue. "Mr. Walker," she said, "you owe the association $150,000. We expect payment arrangements today." Daniel sat calmly. "Interesting. Could you explain these violations? Unauthorized structures, landscaping violations, noise complaints," she rattled off, tapping her pen against a binder. "Failure to pay will result in legal escalation." Another board member sneered, "You're not above the rules. The association governs all land here. If you can't comply, sell and leave." Daniel studied their smug faces. They truly believed they had power over him. He leaned forward slightly. "So you're absolutely certain about your jurisdiction over my land?" "More than certain," Marjorie replied coldly. Daniel stood, sliding their letter back across the table. "Good to know." Without another word, he walked out, leaving them to smirk among themselves, convinced they'd won. But Daniel wasn't finished. The very next day, he sat in the office of Claire, a seasoned property attorney. She examined his documents, frowning as she compared the plat maps and deed. Finally, she leaned back in her chair. "Daniel, your land isn't under their jurisdiction. In fact," she scrolled through the county's digital records. "This deed shows your grandfather retained ownership of the common land, the roads, sidewalks, even the park." Daniel blinked, stunned. "Wait, you're saying the HOA has been running their entire neighborhood on my property?" "Exactly," Claire smirked. "They've been trespassing for years. Technically, you could charge every household rent." Daniel's shock gave way to laughter. The image of Marjorie wagging her pen at him replayed in his mind. She thought she was a queen ruling her domain, but the land beneath her throne didn't even belong to her. He tucked the deed under his arm and stood. "Looks like it's time for another meeting." The next HOA meeting drew a full crowd of neighbors eager for drama. Daniel walked in quietly, folder in hand, and sat across from the board. Marjorie adjusted her glasses, her smirk unwavering. "Mr. Walker, have you come with your check?" Daniel slid the documents onto the table. "Not quite. I thought you'd like to see this first." As Marjorie flipped through the deed and maps, the blood drained from her face. The other board members leaned over, whispering furiously. Daniel spoke loud enough for the room to hear. "My family's owned this land for 70 years. Your HOA was built on it later, without checking the county records. That means every road you drive, every sidewalk you walk, every park you picnic in, it's all mine." The room erupted in gasps. The board's smugness evaporated. One stammered, "That's impossible, we've maintained this neighborhood for years." On my land, Daniel corrected, his voice calm but firm. And now you find me for using what already belongs to me. If I wanted, I could bill every household for back rent. But I won't, if you drop this nonsense, today. The silence was thick. The neighbors whispered, wide-eyed. The board sat frozen, powerless. Daniel gathered his papers and stood. He gave them a final smile. Next time you want to threaten someone, make sure you actually own the ground you're standing on. Then he walked out, leaving the WA to choke on their silence, finally realizing the man they tried to bully was the one who owned everything.